Good evening, everyone. This is Maya Chandrakar, and I will be taking your electrical engineering course for the SCCL exam. Is my screen visible? Am I audible to you all so that I can start the lecture? Okay, so I'm starting the lecture now. This is the syllabus for the electrical engineering section of SCCL exam. First thing is there the difference between electric circuits and network theory. So first we will understand the difference between these two. Why we are going to understand the electric circuit and network theory concepts in order to understand the whole electrical engineering subject, right? In that section, first we will see the concept of charge, then we will understand what is current and what is voltage. After knowing these three things, we will go for the basic laws of electric circuits. After seeing these basic laws of electric circuit, we will understand how to apply those basic laws to a given electric circuit, right? Then we will understand the difference between Kirchhoff's current law and Kirchhoff's voltage law and where we can apply these two laws. These two laws are the basic laws in order to calculate the voltage, current, power, other things. These things are just basic parameters of any electrical network. Then we will understand different kinds of network theorems. For example, Noether theorem, superposition theorem, or Millman's theorem in order to calculate these basic parameters quickly so that we will go for the network reduction techniques, and these things will come under the section network theorems, right? After that we will study about the basic difference between magnetic circuits and AC circuits. Then the second section is related to the measuring instruments. What are the measuring instruments by which we can calculate current, voltage, power consumed by any element or any circuit? What is the energy consumed by any given circuit? Those things we will study in case of electrical measuring instruments. After that, the third section is related to the basics of electrical machines. In this section, we will understand the basic working principles of static and rotating machines. Static machine is called a transformer, that you already know. The second thing is rotating machines. In that case, there are two different categories, DC and AC. DC means direct current, AC means alternating current related machines. In that case, two different machines are there, a DC motor or an AC motor, otherwise generator will be there. Then we will understand the basic concepts of power system, how the electricity will get generated, how it will get transmitted, and how it will get distributed. These things we will see under the section of basics of power systems. After that, in the last thing, we will understand the basic concepts of electronics and how electronics is different from electrical power engineering, right? So let me give you just introduction about these 4 to 5 sections. First, what is an electric circuit? Here you can see there is a circuit in which three elements are connected. Yes, inductor is connected, resistor and a capacitor. These three passive elements, because these three are consuming power or energy from this source. Battery is called a source. So these three basic elements are connected through a source, and this is the complete circuit where this common wire is connected to a ground, and that's why it is called as a closed loop. So any electric circuit is having a closed loop such that the current can flow through it. So this is called the source because it is providing an electrical energy to these three elements. So no, that's why the electric circuits are closed loop or paths forming a network. This is also called a network of electrical components. Electrical components means resistor, inductor, capacitor, and different other components are also there that we will see later. Where electrons can flow, because electron is flowing in this direction, so that the current will flow in this direction. This is the basic convention. If electron is flowing in this direction, so opposite to that current will flow. As we are providing energy through this battery, so electron will flow through these three elements and through the whole circuit, and that's why there will be the flow of current. So this is the electric circuit. Now we will see what is the difference between electric network and electric circuit. Remember that there is a slight difference between these two. Electric networks have not any closed path. In this case, you can see that there is no closed path. There is no closed path. But in case of electric circuit, there is at least one closed path so that the current can flow in this case, because this wire is connected to a ground. So ground is making a common connection for R1 and R3. But in this case, this loop is not closed loop. So that's why electron or current both cannot flow through this path. Only this path will be the closed path. So this is the basic difference. Electric networks don't have closed path, but in case of electric circuit, it should have at least one closed path so that electron or current can flow. In electric circuits, the basic element is electron, or that is having a negative charge. So this is the current carrying element, that is the electron. Now we will see the difference between electrical and electronics. Electrical circuit deals with high voltage, high current and high power. Okay, but in case of electronics, we will deal with voltage, current and power, but these three will be less compared to these three: voltage, current and power. And that is the basic difference between electrical and electronics. So electricity relates to the movement of charge. What is the charge? An electron is having a negative charge. So this is the basic element of any electrical network or circuit. Then electric circuits and systems are used to manage the power through the circuit, whereas electronic circuits and systems are used to manage the information, because we are dealing with low voltage, low current and low power, just to pass the information from one end to the another end. This is the role of electronics. Whereas in case of electrical circuits, we will deal with high voltage, high current, high power, so that we can transmit the energy from one point to another point, so that consumers can consume the electric power. Okay, so electrical devices convert electrical energy into other forms of energy. For example, heat. In case of a heater, as we use this heater as an appliance, then in case of light, we can convert electrical energy into light energy, or in case of a speaker, you can convert the provided electrical energy through to us to sound energy. Okay, then electronic devices control the flow of electrons in order to perform a task. For example, communication system. If we want to um, receive any information at the receiver end, so that we can use the electronic devices nowadays. Okay, so all the things will be automated through electronic devices, and obviously there will be less consumption of power, voltage, current, so that the overall cost will also be less. And that's why people are going for the electronics circuits or electronics devices, or for VLSI, very large scale of integration nowadays. Okay, then let us see the difference between magnetic circuit and electric circuit. As you already know, in an electric circuit, there should be a closed path. So this is the closed path, right? There should be a source. So this is a voltage source. Okay, and that is also called an EMF, electromotive force, because in order to perform a task, there should be an external force, and this is provided by a voltage source, so that there will be the flow of current or electron. Okay, so this is the conducting material or wire that offers a resistance that obstructs the flow of current. But in case of magnetic circuit, this is also similar to electric circuit, but how this is different from that? In case of magnetic circuit, obviously we have to provide an external force, and that is called MMF, magnetomotive force, and that will be written as N into I, where I is the current, such that I will be flown in this closed path of a magnetic circuit, and this N represents the number of turns through of this conductor, such that the current will flow from here, and it will be flown like this, and it will complete its path. So after applying a current, there will be the production of magnetic flux. This is similar to current in case of an electric circuit. So magnetic flux will be flown through this magnetic circuit, and it should be a closed path. So a closed path followed by electric current is known as electric circuit, whereas a closed path followed by the magnetic field line or magnetic flux, we will represent the flux by this symbol phi, is known as the magnetic circuit. And there will be two types of the circuit. So in case of magnetic circuit, there will be flux density, and that will be represented by B, capital B, whereas in case of electric circuit, it will be represented by J. What is J? This is the current density. Okay, but in case of magnetic circuit, there will be magnetic fields of line, and that will be represented by H. In case of electric circuit, it will deal with the electric field of lines. Okay, in case of magnetic circuit, permeability will be there, but in case of electric circuit, conductivity will be there. So conductivity will offer a resistance, whereas permeability of any magnetic material will offer a reluctance. Okay, so these are the basic differences. After that, we will study something about the electrical machines. So there are two different categories. First, static electrical machine, in which transformer comes, and in case of rotating machine, there are two types of machines: motor and generator. Okay, why transformer is called as a machine but not as a rotating machine? Because in case of a transformer, there is no rotating part. We will provide an electrical energy through this input, and we will collect that electrical energy through this output terminal. So in between, according to Faraday's law, there will be electromagnetic induction. That principle will work with the transformer such that the electrical energy will get converted, and some of the electrical energy will get lost. Okay, so that will be called as losses. Different kinds of losses will be there inside the transformer. But in case of a rotating machine, there will be rotating parts, and it will convert one form of energy to another form of energy. Let us say in case of a motor, okay, we will provide electrical energy to its input, and we will collect the mechanical energy to its output. So electrical form of energy will get converted into mechanical form of energy in case of a motor, and just the reverse process will happen in case of a generator. And you can understand this procedure through this picture. This is the system. This is any rotating machine. We will provide the electrical input to its input side. So what will be the machine? We are providing electrical energy, so it will be called as a motor, and we will collect the mechanical form of energy at its output side. Okay, then we will study something related to electrical measuring instruments. In that case, we will understand how a voltmeter is working, how it is measuring the voltage of any given element. These are different kinds of voltmeters, and we will understand how to measure the resistance of any element of a resistor, how to measure the frequency in case of an AC supply. So many things will be there, but all the devices used to measure the magnitude of an electric current with different objectives. We will see these things in later stages. Then there will be a different category that comes under electrical engineering only, that is called as power system. What is a power system? An electric power system is a network of electrical components deployed to supply, transfer, and use the electric power. What are these electrical components? In this picture, you can see that the uh, electricity is generating, okay, in a generation unit. Then it will get transmitted through a step up transformer will transform the electrical energy from this point to that point. After that, transmission of electrical energy will happen, so that it will come to this point. Again, step down transformer will be there, that will transform the electrical energy from this point to that point, and here the utilization will happen. So consumers will consume the transmitted electrical energy that was generated here in the generation unit. So there are many elements, electrical elements that are connected in between. Okay, so we will study these about these elements in later stages. So this is the working principle of any power system. After that, electric circuits and network theory. Yes, we will understand the basic difference between electric circuit and network theory. Network theory will deal with the techniques, how to calculate current, voltage, power, energy, etc. of a given electric circuit, whereas electric circuit deals with the given real life problems. Okay, this will deal with the mathematics involved in any given circuit, and this will deal with the actual problems. Network theory is the study of solving the problems of electric circuits or a closed path. Remember this thing, circuit should have a complete closed path, but the network must not have a closed path condition. It may or may not have a closed path. Okay, so introduction. Electric circuit theory is the most fundamental branch of electrical engineering. We need to understand electric circuit theory properly, then only we will be able to understand the complete electrical engineering. Otherwise we won't be able to understand each and every concept of any section, like power system, electrical machine, communication, control system, measuring instruments, etc. Now coming to the basic element of any electrical circuit, and that is called a charge. As you already know that an electron will flow through the complete circuit, then only there will be the possibility of any current to flow through the circuit. Okay, so what is a charge? Charge is an electrical property of the atomic particles of which matter consists, and a charge is measured in terms of coulombs, that is represented by C. And an electron is having minus 1.602 into 10 power minus 19 coulomb of charge. Why this is negative? Because electron is treated as a negative charge. Okay, and 1 coulomb of charge is having these many number of electrons, 6.24 into 10 power 18, means that is a very huge number. Okay, then coming to current. What is a current? The phenomenon of transferring charge from one point. If this is an element, okay, and if we want to get current that is flowing through any resistance, so first of all we have to apply a voltage source, that is EMF, such that a current will flow through this element. This is a metal, so this is input point, let us say, and this will be sorry, this is the first point and this is the second point. Okay, so the phenomenon of transferring charge from one point in a circuit to another is described by the term electric current. If electron is flowing to this direction, then current will flow to the opposite direction, and this is the basic convention in electrical engineering. You please remember this convention. Okay, whereas the current is the rate of charge, and that can be calculated as I equals to dq by dt, means differentiation of charge with, that is with respect to the time. So remember this equation, that will be helpful to solve the equations or questions. Then we will denote current by the letter I, means the value of current at any given time, whereas the capital I will represent the value of current, that will be RMS or average value. Over means we will calculate the amplitude of current over a given period of time, so that we can represent it by I. That will give your average current or RMS. RMS means root mean square value of this current waveform. Okay. So what is the difference between these two? As you can see that irrespective of time, current value is constant. So this is called a DC current. Whereas in this case, the amplitude and phase, so many things are involved in case of AC current, alternating current, because the amplitude of the current is changing with respect to time. Let us say this is T1 and this is T2. So you can see that I at T1 is not equals to I at T2. This is called an alternating current that changes its amplitude with respect to time. Then what is voltage? Uh, you already know that we have to apply a source across any given circuit. If this is a circuit, then obviously we have to provide an external force so that there will be the flow of current or electron. So to move the electrons from one point to another point in a particular direction, remember this, external force is required, and that's what we call it as a voltage. That is the change of energy with respect to the charge from one point to another point, so that we can calculate voltage as dw by dq. Q is the charge and w is the energy. Power. What is a power? If we multiply the current with the voltage, so that we will get the power. This is the voltage and this is the current. Okay, so what is a power? This is the rate of change of energy with respect to the time. So power is dw by dt, power consumed by any circuit element. Power can be delivered or can be absorbed. If the element is passive, means the passive elements are those elements that cannot generate any electrical power. But in case of sources can generate or deliver power. So these are called as active devices or elements, because these have the capability to deliver positive power. Positive power means power delivered to the load. Absorbed power means power absorbed by the element or the load. Okay. In case of a resistor, we can calculate the power as P equals to V into I, where V equals to IR by the Ohm's law. So you can just manipulate the things and you can get this equation. Then what is an energy? The capacity to do the work is called energy, and we can write the energy as a function by this equation. Energy, if you interchange this and if you integrate for a given time period from minus infinite to t, or for a given time period means from t1 to t2, you if you integrate this equation, then you will get w, that is the energy for a given time period from t1 to t2. So this is the equation to calculate the energy if the power consumed by any network element is given. And remember this thing, 1 watt hour equals to 3600 joule. Okay, then yeah, this is the example. In this example, what it is asking, it is asking that the charge in a capacitor is given by this equation. Okay, charge is given, and you can observe that the charge is a function of voltage. So what is the value of voltage? Vt is given, that is equals to sine of t. So v of t, why it is written as v of t, means the voltage is a function of time. So time is the independent quantity, and voltage is dependent on time, whereas the charge is dependent on voltage, such that the charge is dependent on time, so that we have to calculate the current that is flowing through the capacitor. So how to calculate? As you already know that I equals to dq by dt, that is the rate of rate of charge. So how to calculate current? Dq by dv, because the charge is a function of voltage and the voltage is a function of time, so that you can calculate the current. You just need to calculate these two, and you just put these values so that you can get the overall current value by this function. This will be the answer. Now we will see different types of circuit elements that are used in any electrical circuit. Okay, there can be inductor, resistor, capacitor, generator, etc., with two terminals by which we can it can be connected to other electrical components. Remember that any element is having two terminals, this and this, so that we can get the terminal conditions. Terminal conditions mean the terminal voltage, and this will be the terminal current. It can be going inside or coming outside, it, depending on the depending on the condition we will see. Okay, but in case of passive elements, we will denote it like this. Like this means it is consuming power, P absorbed. Passive elements means resistance, inductance, capacitance. You just remember this thing. Okay, this is the basic convention. Means it is absorbing power, but in case of active element like source, we will write like this. Means source is providing positive voltage and it is giving the positive current. Okay, but in case of passive elements, it will consume the power, and that's why the current is going inside the element, because you already know that this is the resistor. Let us say that this is the load. So what will be the terminal conditions? This will be Vt and this will be the current I, such that power absorbed will be positive. V into I, and that will be positive. Okay. So what is a resistor? You already know about that. In case of a resistor, I will be directly proportional of V. In case of an inductor, the voltage is directly proportional of di by dt, such that V equals to L di by dt. What is L? That is the value of inductance. In case of a capacitor, V will be 1 by C integration of I dt, and we have to consider the limit. Okay, as this is the integration with respect to time, so we have to consider time t1 to t2, so that you can calculate the voltage across a capacitor. Then there will be independent sources and dependent sources. What will be the sources? Either voltage source or current source. Okay, we will see what is the independent source, voltage source or current source. What will be the dependent voltage source or current source? So the independent current and voltage sources. Um, we will represent the voltage source by this symbol. Okay, plus and minus, because voltage is relative related to the potential terms. Means this is as high, this is at higher potential, and this terminal is at lower potential. Lower potential. This will be at the higher potential, and these two are the terminals. In case of a current source, we will represent it like this by an arrow sign, and that will be called as a current source. These two are the terminals. So current is flowing from here to here, and we are denoting it with this circle symbol. Okay, means this is independent source, either voltage source or current source. Why? Let us see. Ideal voltage source. Okay, this is the ideal voltage source, and this is the current flowing through the voltage source. Why it is called as ideal? Because it's irrespective of the current, irrespective of the value of the current, the amplitude of the voltage at any value of current is constant, and that's why it is called as ideal voltage source. But in case of ideal current source, irrespective of the voltage across it, there will be a constant value of the current, and that's why it is called as the ideal current source. But in case of a practical voltage source, you can observe that there is an internal resistance of a voltage source, and this is the current flowing through the voltage source. So we have to apply the Kirchhoff's voltage law. Kirchhoff's voltage law says that the total voltage, that is Vt here, this is the total voltage, will be the summation of terminal voltage plus the voltage drop across the internal resistance of a voltage source. So the total terminal voltage will be V of t minus delta V. And what is delta V? By the Ohm's law, delta V equals to I1 into R. So Vt minus I1 into R. That is the terminal voltage. This is the terminal voltage, and this is the terminal current, because the voltage drop is there, and that's why we are getting, as the current is increasing, as I1 is increasing, there is the drop in this case, because drop will increase as current is increasing, and that's why we are getting less voltage. As current is increasing, the voltage is dropping like this. But in case of a practical current source, the situation will be similar. The total current will be the summation of, by KCL, Kirchhoff's current law. This will be the sum of these two current. Total current will be I1 plus the current that is flowing through the resistance. What is the voltage across the resistance? Because there is no element connected across between these 2 points, so that's why the total voltage will be V1 across the R. So V1 divided by R, so that is the current that is flowing through the resistance I of R. Okay, so terminal current will be I of T minus V1 by R, and that's why you can get this kind of characteristic, because this is related to practical current source. Practical means internal resistance of a voltage source or a current source will be there. Remember that the internal resistance of a voltage source will be connected in series, and in case of current source, the internal resistance of a current source will be connected in parallel. These configuration is called as a parallel connection, whereas this configuration is called as a series connection. Okay, you have to remember this. Then next, yeah, you can solve this question. This is a very simple question. You can solve like this. Okay, you just need to calculate what is the delta V, that is the voltage drop across the resistance R. Then dependent and dependent current and voltage sources. You already know that we can represent a voltage source by plus and minus sign, and we can represent a current source by this arrow. Okay, but in case of a dependent current source, we have to use a diamond symbol. This will be for the voltage source, and this will be for the dependent uh, current source. Dependent current source. Why these are called as dependent voltage source or dependent current source? If it is a voltage source, so it can be dependent on different current or different voltage, and these current or voltage are related to different element that is connected across the same circuit. Okay, like this you can observe this in this example. This is the dependent. You already know that I1 and I2 are independent current sources, because these have the fixed values, and these are not dependent on anything else. But in case of this dependent source, its value is 4 times of Ix. And what is Ix? Ix is this. Ix is the current that is flowing across the resistance R1. So this value 4 times of Ix, this voltage source is having 4 Ix value, and what is the Ix? We have to calculate this current value, and that is dependent on the Ix value, and that's why we are calling it as dependent mm, dependent voltage source. Okay, and it is dependent on the current, and that's why it is called as the current controlled voltage source, because it is dependent on the current. So current controlled voltage source, as it is dependent on the current. Likewise, if we take this one, current controlled current source, this is I1. Okay, and it is having the value of AIX, whereas A is a constant, but IX is another current that is dependent on another element. Okay, so this value is controlled by IX, and that's why it is called as the current controlled current source. So there are four different types of dependent sources: current controlled current source, voltage controlled voltage source, because it is dependent on another voltage Vx. Then third one is voltage controlled voltage source, as it is dependent on another voltage, and this is the voltage source, and that's why it is called as voltage controlled voltage source, and this will be the current controlled voltage source. Okay, um you please remember these two things. Means a dependent source may absorb or supply power. You please remember this one. An independent source always provides energy or power. Okay, means it always supplies power to the circuit in case of an independent source, but in case of a dependent source, it can absorb the power or supply the power depending upon the situation. After that, let us come to this law, Ohm's law. You already know about that. Ohm's law is applicable to any linear and bilateral network or circuit. Okay, so the current flowing through a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference across the ends of the conductor. Let us say this is a conductor. Okay, so conductor is made up of, let us say, copper. So copper provides a resistance that restricts the flow of current. So these two are the ends of a conductor. So current is flowing. So according to the Ohm's law, I will be directly proportional of V, right? I will be directly proportional of E and inversely proportional of R, such that uh, I will be equals to V by R, and that is called the Ohm's law. Here you can see two different configurations, first and the second. This is called a series network, in which so many resistances are connected in a series, and you can calculate the R total or R equivalent as the summation of these many resistances. But in case of a parallel connection, as you can see that this is the node number X, this is node number Y, and all these resistors are connected through the same points. So these are called as parallel connected resistive elements. Okay, so how to calculate the R equivalent of a given network? R equivalent, or R total equivalent resistance seen from these two terminals. Terminals means X and Y. We can call these 2 points as nodes, whereas this node is X and this node is Y. So the total equivalent resistance will be summation of these many resistances. But in case of parallel circuit, we can calculate the total resistance by this. Okay, and this is the example. How to calculate? Yeah, how to calculate the equivalent resistance? You can see that this is 10 ohm, and this is 2 ohm. So 10 ohm plus 2 ohm, that is 12 ohm. Okay, in case of this, these two resistance will get added, because these two are in series and these two are in series. So 4 plus 8, 12 ohm. Now 12 ohm are in parallel, so the total will be 6 ohm. So the 6 ohm will be connected to this in a series manner. Okay, so what will be the equivalent circuit? 4 ohm. This will be the 6 ohms, and this value will be 5 volts. Then R total will be 4 plus 6, that is 10 ohms, and I will be the total current flowing through this circuit. I will be 5 divided by 10, so I will be zero point 0.5 amperes. Now coming to different circuit elements, R, L, and C: resistance, inductance, and capacitance. These three are the basic circuit elements, and these three are called as passive elements, because these three don't generate any electrical energy. Okay, these three will not be able to generate electrical energy, and that's why these are called passive elements, whereas voltage or current source are called as active elements, because these have the capability to generate electrical energy and provide the electrical energy to another passive elements. So what is a resistance? You already know. How to calculate the power? You already know about that. How to calculate the energy? That will be this equation, P of dt. Okay, now what is an inductor? So inductors will have the number of turns, as you can see. N will be the number of turns. This is an inductor. How to make an inductor? If this is a conductor, okay, this is the metal, copper metal. Now if we will rotate it like this, and we will form a coil like this, X and Y. These two are the ends. So we can form it like this. This is called as coil, and it is having n number of turns. N number of turns. So that will form an inductor. Then if we apply the current through it, so there will be the formation of magnetic magnetic field and magnetic flux, magnetic field of lines, magnetic flux phi in Weber, that is the unit. Okay, phi, or sometimes we can represent it by psi. So what will be the psi? Psi will be directly proportional of current. If we increase the amplitude of current, then obviously the amount of magnetic flux will increase. Okay, so psi will be equals to L into I. L is the proportionality constant, and this is the property of an inductor that will be represented by an inductance. Similarly, in case of a resistor, the property will be indicated by a resistance. Okay. Likewise, we can calculate the terminal voltage by d psi by dt. That is the rate of magnetic field of lines, and we can put the value of psi as the by this psi equals to Li, so d by dt into Li, as L is a constant value for a given inductor. That's why we can calculate the voltage as L di by dt, and hence we can calculate the current by 1 by L integration of V dt. Remember that the current flowing through the inductor is given by 1 by L integration from T naught to T V of dt plus I of T naught, because inductor is an energy storing element, because it stores the electrical energy in the form of magnetic field. Okay, in the name of magnetic field, and that's why uh, we have to write the complete current equation that is flowing through the inductor. So this is the initial current I at T naught, and after that we have to calculate the other current for the time period from T naught to T. That will be the second component. So whenever you are going to write the equation, you please remember this. Means you have to include the initial value of the current that was flowing through the inductor. Similarly, in case of a capacitor, you can write Q directly proportional of V. What is a Q? That is the charge across the capacitor. The stored charge will be calculated as Q equals to CV, where C is the capacitance value of a capacitor. After that, you can calculate the current that is flowing across the capacitor. That will be the rate of charge. Similarly, you can put the value of Q in this equation so that you will get the current flowing through the capacitor as a C dV by dt, and hence you can calculate the voltage across the capacitor as 1 by C integration of I dt. You already know that capacitor is also a storing element that stores the electrical energy in the name of electric field. Okay, so that's why you have to consider the initial voltage, as you consider the initial value of current in case of an inductor. Likewise, you have to consider the initial value of voltage, and then you can calculate the present voltage value by this equation, right? Then how to calculate the power? Power will be calculated as P equals to V into I, where P equals to V C dV by dt, and hence you can calculate the power like this. Whereas you can calculate the stored energy in a capacitor by half CV square. In case of an inductor, you can calculate the energy as half Li square. You can do the derivation. I'm just giving the formula directly. Then the ideal conditions. Okay, yeah. Important characteristics of ideal inductor and capacitor. You please read all the points I'm telling about this one only. Means in case of an ideal inductor, if we apply a DC voltage, so it will become a short circuited element, and an infinite amount of current will flow through this element. Okay, but in case of a capacitor, in case of an ideal capacitor, if we apply the voltage across it, that is the DC voltage, then it will behave like an open circuit, and there will be no flow of current. Means IC will be zero, because it is behaving like this open circuit. But in case of inductance, it behaves like a short circuit, because a sudden impulsive current will flow through the inductor. In case of a capacitor, a sudden impulsive voltage will be there across the capacitor, that is the VC, and that's why it will get charged within no time, and it will behave like an open circuit, and hence the current that is flowing through this capacitor will be zero. So that is the ideal condition of a capacitor, or ideal condition of an inductor, and then you can read these points. And yes, let me complete these things. The classification of circuit elements. You already know about the active and passive elements. Active elements will be sources, but in case of passive elements, R, L, C, and other things will be there that cannot generate electrical form of energy. But in case of source or active elements that can provide or that can deliver the power, okay, and hence you can calculate by this, means you can calculate the power consumed by a particular element, and then you can decide whether it is an active element or a passive element. After that, let us see the difference between bilateral and unilateral elements. Okay, let us say this is an element that is represented by Z. This is the terminal voltage across it. This is the terminal voltage across it, and this is the current flowing through this, and this is the current flowing through this. You can observe that we have interchanged the terminals, okay, or we have applied the voltage that is having different polarity in this case. So what is the bilateral element? The voltage current relationship is same for the current flowing in either direction, means V by I in this case will be equal to V by I in this case. Then this will be called as the bilateral element, like this. The ratio will be same, so that will be called as a bilateral element, because we can interchange the terminals, but the value of terminal characteristic like current will not change. But in case of a unilateral element, the voltage current relationship will be different for the two direction of current flow, means in this case current is flowing is this direction, but in this case current is flowing is this direction. So these two currents will not be equal, like this is the characteristic I and V. This is the characteristic of a diode. So here you can see that the current value is not same for the two different directions, or the voltage current relationship is not in case of a diode characteristic. So likewise you can identify that whether the given element is bilateral or unilateral. Then what is the difference between lumped and distributed elements? Lumped elements are considered as the separate elements, okay, which are very small in size, like resistor, inductor, capacitor, so that we can connect them in a circuit by representing like this, like this. But in case of a distributed element, for example, transmission line, if this is a transmission line and its length is 10 kilometers, so you cannot represent it by resistance, then inductance, then capacitance. We can't represent it by like this, okay, because the distance is more, and there will be distribution of these elements R, L, and C over a distance. So we have to consider a particular section of a transmission line. Means how to model a transmission line? Let us say this length is 10 kilometers. Okay, so we have to consider a particular section like this, and then this is a particular section. Again, we have to go for another section R, L, C. Again, we have to go for the another section R, L, C. Likewise, we have to go for the distributed elements. So these is the difference between these two. And what is linear and non-linear element? So an element that follows additivity and homogeneity property for relationship between excitation and response is called a linear element. Example, y equals to m into x. X is the excitation and y is the response. Okay, but in case of non-linear element, we can't write like this. In case of a non-linear element, we can write like this. So there is no linear relationship between y and x. Here x is the input or excitation, and y is the output or response of the system. What is homogeneity property and what is additivity property? Additivity means ax1 plus bx2, okay, but in case of homogeneity you can write k times of x, like this. If a linear element follows these two properties, then only you can call it as a linear element. Otherwise you cannot call it as a linear element. This is the example. We will see the rest of the examples in tomorrow's class. So today this is over and we will meet tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
To watch the complete video, download Mining Gyan 2.0 app from the Play Store and enjoy seamless learning with Mining Gyan 2.0.